Let me be honest with you, law school will shock you. US law schools, they will shock you. If you're moving to this country, the United States of America, from another country, just expect some shock. For me, I went through it. I cried for weeks. No, I cried for a couple of months just trying to adjust, right? Because it was a real shift for me. So what do I want to do in this episode? As your tour guide in the US here, I want to share some of the things you can expect in your first few weeks of law school, right? And this is just to prep you. A lot of you are planning on moving to the US or will be here September, October, whatever month you show up here. But this episode is really for you to prepare you on your first few weeks of being in the United States and in a US law school. Now, first thing I'm going to be talking about is the American accent. Obviously, you're moving to the United States of America and you can expect people to speak with the American accent. And the American accent, it takes a bit of adjusting to, but even more so is different learning in the American accent, right? And why I say that is that it's very fast. A lot of times for a lot of us, like for me as a Nigerian, when I was being taught, the English is slower. You have more time to assimilate as you're listening. But for the American accent, it's very yeah, that's the honest truth. That's really what it sounds like to me, at least at the time. And so it was a shock for me. I remember moving from class to class and feeling like I was in a trance. What did he just say? I'm looking at your mouth. It's moving, but I don't seem to understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. It's okay. I want to reassure you that it's completely okay. You're going to learn over time how to learn in the American accent, how to listen attentively in the American accent. One thing I can say that helped me during this period was preparing. So always prepare before class, so that you come prepared and you're actively listening, right? That really helps to really actively listen because you have prepared. So that is one way I feel like you can mitigate that. But the American accent is a real thing, and be patient with yourself. If you see yourself like gliding from class to class and just looking at the professor's mouth and it looks like it's moving, but I don't seem to hear you, you gonna be fine. The next thing that might be a challenge for you or you can expect is note taking, right? Obviously, when you go to these classes, you're going to see a lot of people coming out with their computers, bringing out their MacBooks and taking notes, right? That might not be your style if you're from a country like Nigeria or a lot of other countries. A lot of times we're used to handwriting, right? And so that might be a transition for you. What I would say is consistency is your friend. For me, I struggled. So in the first few weeks I wanted to be like everybody, so I brought out my computer and I started to take notes, but I was very slow. Why? It's not as if I had been typing before. I was missing out on a lot of, relevant information because, they are speaking fast, you're typing slow. So what do you think you're even typing? I remember reviewing those notes and I'll see some words that I've written and I'm like, it's a short form, but I don't know what this short form means, right? So let me tell you how to remedy this because, I'm not just your tour guide, I'm providing solutions to. First thing, always have somebody like a buddy in class who will email you their notes afterwards, right? Second thing, you can handwrite. Nothing stops you from handwriting. If that's what you've been doing, consistency is your best friend in the first few weeks. Like while you figure out what works best for you, consistency is very important, right? And so if you've been handwriting, it's okay for you to continue handwriting. If you didn't know, I even handwrote the entire bar exam. I don't joke. Like if I don't plan on killing myself if I cannot clean I won't kill myself, right? So please handwrite if that works best for you. And then as you are reviewing, you can then type out your notes. That even helps you, right? You're doing double review. You're reading, you're writing, you're typing. Your brain is, the information is being reiterated multiple times to you. So note taking, that's something that you can expect to be a challenge in your first few weeks. Now, one of the biggest things that I struggled with and which I feel like a lot of LLM students will struggle with is imposter syndrome. And that is just this feeling of you're not good enough. These people are smarter than you. These people are better than you. Those were things that I kind of told myself at some point, because it just felt like you would find people with 100 years of experience, because your classes, don't forget, you're going to have some of your classes, you're going to share them with JD students, and some of these JD students, they've already done like an undergrad degree, they've worked for years, and so you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm in the wrong place, but you're not. I want to remind you, you're not. And so when you arrive the US and you need some comfort, you can come back and watch this episode. You are not. You're in the right place. You've paid the money. You got the admission. You are in the right place, right? And so I just want you to remind yourself of that. I want you to pace yourself. Show yourself a lot of grace in those first few weeks. Don't expect to have it all together. Don't expect to know all the answers. You are there to learn, not to show what you know, right? You are there to learn. So it's okay if people know. Learn from them. Don't feel like you need to compete with them. That would be like a waste of your time, right? Learn from them as opposed to competing with them. Imposter syndrome is a real thing, right? Don't feel like, oh my gosh, something is wrong with me. Nothing is wrong with you. You're going to get over it. Even till now, I go to a new job, or I get the new thing to do at my job, and I feel like I'm not competent. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm not good enough. But you are good enough. So just remind yourself of that. And I hope that carries you through your first few weeks. Now, another thing you can expect in the first few weeks or months are these awkward networking sessions, right? So these are sessions where you would learn the conversation of the art, not the conversation, the art of small talk, and maybe big talk, depending on how good your conversations go. And it might be very awkward for some of you. Like for me, it was like I would think of like have a list of questions. Now I think about it, I would ask, so what's the weather like where you're from? Like in my country, Nigeria, we don't ask about the weather like that. So it was a very strange to be like, we go deep and real in our conversations. How was your week? Or very, I want to say, superficial conversations sometimes, and this might be very uncomfortable for you, but I want you to learn the art of doing this. You're going to have to learn. It's going to be a shock, it's going to be a surprise, but and for some of you, if you're good at this already, oh wow, congratulations. But if you're not, you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn that, like it's going to have to be a thing that you have to learn, like how to have these conversations, how to ask people, how are you, not how are you, but like the weather, things to avoid in this networking sessions. I remember those days when I was job hunting. Like I'm having conversations with a lot of these people because obviously I'm looking for a job, but for some reason I wasn't supposed to say, or I'm not supposed to say, hey, can you give me a job? You shouldn't say that. Right? You're not supposed to say, hey, you can't be that direct, but everybody knows that's why you're there. So it's something that you're going to have to learn, having to have this conversation with your classmate. I would say, please, as LLM students, also build relationship with JD students too. That was something that I didn't do well or sufficiently, but I think you should. Those relationships last. Those relationships, are very important as well. You're here to broaden your horizon and your circle. So don't just stick to LLM students alone. Broaden that horizon, broaden that circle. Networking is very important. Those sessions may be awkward, but you're going to build beautiful connections. I want to assure you that with time you will build beautiful connections with these people, and you never know, they may just be the key to the dream job that you're hoping for in the United States of America. Now, another thing that might be a shock to you is the mode of learning here / teaching. So in the United States of America and in the US law school, what they use is this Socrates, I don't know how it's pronounced. Please go and do your research, right? But they use this Socratic method of teaching, and what that really is that unlike in a lot of our countries where it's a lot of chew and pour, where the lecturer does comes to class and pours a lot of information on you, and you just swallow all that information and go back. Here it's very conversational, right? The professor will come to class, and the professor isn't really teaching, in my opinion. They are asking for your opinions. They are letting you guys have conversations with yourselves, kind of, right? And you're asking questions and things like that. So it's quite different. So if you're coming to class with the expectation, this lecturer is going to give me the answer to you're going to be very disappointed, right? If you're coming to class with that expectation. So what I would advise you to do is to learn to ask questions. A lot of the countries where we are from, we are not even allowed to ask questions. But here, that's one thing I love. Nobody cares. Right, I remember back then when I was in law school, there were people who were just asking questions. In my mind, I felt like that's not the smartest question, but the professor will always say that's a good question. So here you are allowed to express yourself. You are allowed to be you. You are allowed to be free, right? You are allowed to ask questions, even stupid questions. Let me be honest with you, even stupid questions you are allowed to ask, and you're giving that freedom. But don't just come to class with that expectation that the lecturer is going to write everything out on the board or dictate or cite out some notes and you're going to, get all the answers to. It doesn't work like that, right? It's a Socrates, please figure out that pronunciation, that style of learning where it's more conversational. The lecturer is trying to get your opinions. The lecturer is trying to actually learn more from you and see what you've learned, right? And so that's give and take. Now, don't feel stupid asking questions. Always ask questions. I would say if you have a question, ask it. No one is paying your school fees, right? You've spent thousands of dollars. Be rest assured that you should be asking those questions. That's the honest truth. Nobody should stop you from asking your questions, right? It's very important. Anyway, that is one thing that might shock you. It's not a chew and pour situation. No lecturer is coming to pour and bless you with answers. You're gonna have to figure that by yourself.